Witness on the first panel today is the Honorable John Culberson, Chairman of the House Appropriations Subcommittee on Commerce, Justice, and Science. Congressman Culberson represents the 7th District of Texas, a district formerly represented by President George H.W. Bush. A longtime space enthusiast, Chairman Culberson is the sponsor of H.R. 2093, the Space Leadership Preservation Act of 2015. We thank him for being here this morning and look forward to hearing about his bill. And the gentleman is recognized for 5 minutes. John, make sure your mic is on there.
Thank you. Okay. I want to thank you, Chairman Smith and Ranking Member Johnson, for hosting this meeting, holding this hearing today, and to review the Space Leadership Preservation Act of 2015. I also want to thank your staff, particularly Chris Shank and Tom Hammond, for working with me and my staff on this important legislation. Chairman Smith, thank you for supporting this bill as an original co-sponsor. I'm deeply grateful for your confidence and support on this important matter, and also want to thank your fellow committee members, Representatives Sensenbrenner, Posey, and Bridenstine, for their support as co-sponsors. I especially want to thank my predecessor as the Congressman Frank Wolf, who chaired the Commerce, Justice, Science Committee and helped me develop this legislation originally, because Frank saw, as I have, as all of you have, it is we simply have to give NASA greater stability. We need to make this agency less political, more professional, and give them the ability to see far into the future with the knowledge and with the confidence that the Congress will be there behind them. I have some of my very best memories as a boy growing up in Houston have been to the space program. I've been all my earliest heroes were the Apollo astronauts. I think I got my first telescope for Christmas when I was 12. I've had one ever since. Bought myself a rather large telescope as a high school graduation present. These men and women have been heroes to all Americans. And when I was assigned to the Appropriations Committee, I asked but one thing. I wanted to serve on the Commerce, Justice, Science Committee and one day be there to chair it. And it's an extraordinary privilege for me to work with you, Mr. Chairman, Ranking Member Johnson, and all the members of this committee as we do our best arm in arm and to make sure that NASA has the funding, the support that they need to do all that's on their plate. I have in this in the appropriations bill that the Congress just approved, I made certain that NASA has today the largest appropriation that they have ever received since the agency was created in 1958. And I will continue to make sure that NASA has the resources they need to accomplish all that is before them. But that, again, is a year-to-year effort. That is, again, something that is tends to be it is often reliant too much on who is in the White House and who holds the chairmanships of these important subcommittees. I also want to be sure to thank my counterpart in the Senate, Senator Richard Shelby, who chairs the Senate Commerce, Justice, Science Committee. He's an ardent supporter of the space program, and it's been absolutely vital to have him there for his support. You know, although it's been over 44 years since any human has set foot on the surface of another celestial body, when Gene Cernan, my constituent and good friend, and Harrison Schmitt left the moon after 3 days exploring the Taurus-Littrow Lunar Valley, Mission Control in Houston read a statement from the White House to the Apollo 17 astronauts that said, "As the Challenger leaves the surface of the moon, we are conscious not of what we leave behind, but of what lies before us." But today, the glory days of the Apollo program seem to be behind us, and the country seems to have lost focus on exploring what lies before us, or all the wonder that would be, as Tennyson said so well. The team at NASA, unfortunately, has faced program cancellation after program cancellation. As Mike Griffin points out so correctly in his testimony you'll hear in a moment, Dr. Griffin points out as the year 2009 opened, we had a plan for our nation's space program, a plan of generational scope for what it was that NASA expected to do. But by early 2010, barely a year later, this carefully hewn strategy that had been approved twice by Congress in 2 successive authorization acts of 2005 and 2008, Dr. Griffin points out, had been abandoned and canceled. And I have a chart here that I'll make sure each one of you have a copy of, that Mike Coates, the director at the Johnson Space Center, first pointed out to me, that this is the fundamental problem at NASA, that in the last 20 years, NASA has spent more than $20 billion on canceled development programs. No entity, no company, no entity, no agency of the Federal Government, no agency of any State government or local government can function in this environment. And think of the heartbreak. Brian Babin, my good friend and colleague from the east side of Houston, represents the Johnson Space Center. We all know the heartbreak that those great men and women, those brilliant engineers and scientists who have devoted their life to making the dreams of the future come true, to build these incredible machines, these great rockets and spacecraft, they pour their heart and soul into it, yet only to have it yanked out from underneath them. That is very, very damaging to their morale and destructive to our space program as a whole. This is not a partisan issue. Completely set politics aside. Forget who's in the White House, what party label. It's just intensely destructive, and we cannot continue. It's wasteful, damaging, and it damages our ability as a nation to preserve our leadership in space. And space is the high ground. I cannot imagine General Meade at Gettysburg abandoning Little Round Top, just giving it over. You do not surrender the high ground. And yet I'm very concerned that in the absence of stability, in the absence of giving NASA a greater level of professionalism and making them less political, that the country is going to wind up abandoning the high ground. There is no clear mission today, and we simply have to come up with a way to give the agency the ability to give us that vision, and with the guidance and support of Congress, make that come true. I had the chance, the honor recently to hear former Navy SEAL Robert O'Neill speak about his work in identifying and taking out Osama bin Laden. And one of the things that really stuck with me from Rob's remarks was he said that a lack of a clear mission hurts morale. That's true of all of us as human beings, and it's certainly true of the team at NASA. And that we can help make that, fix that problem with this legislation. I have welcome suggestions or ideas on how we can modify the legislation, but I put a lot of thought into this with your help, Chairman Smith and Chairman Frank Wolf. We looked at some of the models in government that work well. The director of the FBI, for example, has the 10-year term for the director of the FBI has served him very well. We know that the FBI is a pillar of integrity, and that director does not think about politics or who the president is. They focus on enforcing the law and doing the right thing for the right reasons for the country. Whether it is the president, Ms. Johnson, or whether it's the Congress, your human nature being what we are, there's going to be politics either way. And the idea of the board of directors was to make sure that we had members from both parties recommending appointments to that board, who would have to then be submitted by the president to the Senate for confirmation, preserving the separation of powers and the executive's role in making that appointment so there are no constitutional issues, and you also have both parties and both houses of Congress having an impact on that board of directors. The idea of the budget being submitted directly to Congress is important, because if we don't, all of us, none of us know exactly what NASA's best minds have recommended. They submit their budget to the Office of Management and Budget, and the budget that we get, Mr. Chairman, and the budget that I receive, the budget recommendation from the President, is not really from NASA. It's from OMB. As a practical matter, we all know that OMB runs NASA today. The bureaucrats, the bean counters at OMB are the ones making the big decisions for our nation's space program, and it's just unacceptable. I'd like to know, as I know you would, an honest, accurate number. What do the best minds at NASA recommend to the Congress? What's necessary for you to achieve all that's before you? And that's the idea behind the direct budget submission, Ms. Johnson, that we would, as members of Congress, receive a budget submission from the Board of Directors at NASA. We would also get OMB's recommendation, but then we can lay them down side by side and see what is necessary to make those dreams of the future come true, and balance them and figure out what is necessary to for American taxpayers to fund that recommendation. That longer term for the administrator, I think, is not only necessary for stability, to make the agency head less political, but to give that individual the time to make sure that these tremendously complicated and expensive spaceflight programs come to fruition, so we don't see this start and stop, as you see on this chart right here. Finally, Mr. Chairman, I really think that this, from my experience working in the Congress, I started out here on this committee, and when I went to the Appropriations Committee and was able to see, as you have, the extraordinary men and women at NASA who are so dedicated to make sure that the American space program is the best on Earth, who are so dedicated to make sure that the spacecraft and the rockets they build are truly the best that have ever been conceived or built by human hands. I keep coming back to the fundamental problem. The cause of the instability is governance. We could continue to fund NASA. We can continue down this path of year-to-year, pillar-to-post funding, or we could make fundamental long-term changes that our successors will inherit an agency that is less political, more professional, more stable, more focused on making the dreams of the future come true, more focused on achieving the goals of the decadal survey. Quite frankly, I wish one thing that you could add, I'd love to figure out a way to have a human spaceflight decadal survey. The scientists at the National Academy of Sciences do a great job when they prepare the decadal survey for astrophysics, for earth sciences, for heliophysics, for planetary science. And you'll see in my CJS bill, I wired in there that NASA shall follow the recommendations of the decadal survey as they prepare what is necessary for missions in the future. And I made certain they got the money to do it. But what I can't figure out and resolve is how do you have a decadal survey for human spaceflight without having all those conflicting passions from the different contractors that are involved. That's a challenge that I'd hope ask for the help of the Science Committee in resolving. But it is governance. It all circles back to governance. And if we want to ensure that America maintains its leadership role in outer space, if we want to make sure that we're protecting the high ground, and that our children and grandchildren will live to see interstellar flight, that they'll live to see the discovery of life on other worlds, I encourage you, I urge you to join me in passing this legislation and modifying it, make it better, and help us find a way to give NASA the stability that they need at headquarters, again, to make those dreams of the future come true. And I thank you very much for having me here today.
Chairman Culberson, thank you for the comments about your bill, and also thank you for all you have done for NASA over the years and into the future as well. You are welcome to join us up here if you'd like to listen to the next expert panel, and we are going to take a brief recess while the witness table is prepared for the next panel.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.